Be tryna run it up to my ball, what's the plan? All up in my mentions when I see them, they my fans. You win, then you lose, gotta take another chance. Let's go.
So, Jerry, welcome back to we got Making the Case, Bill Russell. This is making the case of why Bill Russell could be the GOAT. He has a bunch of these. I think I've done Larry Bird so far. I may have done LeBron or Jordan. One or the other. I've done a few of them. This is the Bill Russell one. RP Bill Russell. Let's start off with that. Prayers and condolences to his family and the whole NBA community. We lost another great legend. If you're new, like, comment, subscribe. We got a bunch of NBA videos on this channel. Go check them out. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
Or helmets give fans the most intimate experience of a team sport that exists. And because of the different styles that basketball allows for, players develop their own distinct identities and signature styles through their creativity, flair, and athleticism.
Hey!
And although no player succeeds alone, the scoring volume and two-way nature of the sport give individual stars a nearly unprecedented amount of control over the flow and outcome of a game. For this reason, players are constantly compared to their peers and to the legends of the past in order to answer the most hotly contested question in the sport. Who's the greatest to ever do it? For many, the question is redundant. They believe in only one right answer, their answer. Others might have their own personal stance, but acknowledge one or two alternatives. But I believe that there's much more nuance to the question of greatness and more answers to it than you might think. By my count, there are 8 players in NBA history that have a substantial claim as the GOAT. It's a subjective thing though. I can't give you a definitive answer. All I can do is make the argument. So today, I'll be making the case for Bill Russell as the greatest basketball player of all time. Imagine what I'm trying to do. I'm speaking to the most data-driven, analytically obsessed, statistically fixated generation of basketball fans that has ever lived. And I'm not just speaking to you. I'm making the argument that the greatest player of all time is one who, rather than scoring in high volume or with top-notch efficiency, excelled at defense, an aspect of the game that went virtually unrecorded for this player's entire career, an aspect which, even today, the most advanced metrics still provide an incomplete picture of. More than that, though, this player excelled in the wrinkles of basketball, manipulating the fabric of the game into his own design. This player is remembered for his unparalleled ability to lead, to inspire, to foster cohesion and self-sacrifice in favor of loftier goals, to dance along the line that blurs team and brotherhood. These empirically irrelevant skills resulted in the most successful professional sports dynasty in North American history. To begin making Russell's case, I want you to remember these legendary words from NFL head coach Herm Edwards. You play to win the game.
Facts.
It doesn't matter who you are, what your abilities are, what level you're playing at, what kind of sport you're playing, or who you're up against. You play to win the game. Remember that as we talk about Bill Russell. You play to win the game. Because when you look at sports and competition at its fundamental level, it is that simple. So, did he win? Hell yes, he won. In his 13 NBA seasons, Bill Russell captured 11 titles, more than any other professional team athlete of note. 8 of them came consecutively. I'll come right out and say it. If you want the GOAT conversation to be about winning, oh yeah, this guy had a great career, but this other guy just wanted to win more. This guy wanted to win more than anything. That's why he's better. I want winners. If that's the way we're going to do this, then you have to crown Bill Russell. But was Russell an awe-inspiring athletic specimen? Nope.
So if rings is your whole argument, Bill Russell is by far the GOAT. We can cut the video off now. If you're a ring person, Bill Russell's a GOAT. I want you to say Bill Russell's a GOAT. You can leave the video right now.
That kind of player, you look to guys like Wilt, Shaq, and LeBron. Was he a transcendent scorer? Like I said earlier,
you see that right now?
Players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were in another stratosphere in that department. Here's what Bill Russell was. He was a natural athlete at 6'10". He glided across the court with the balance and grace of a 6'3" guard. Vertically, he was springy and had the uncanny ability to seemingly jump twice in the same instant. He was strong, but surprisingly lean and gangly. 220 pounds of all arms and legs. He had a level of anticipation and awareness that was second to none, Put it all together and you get the second highest rebounding average of any player ever. You also get the most domineering defender in basketball history.
Good block.
Historically, Russell was a basketball pioneer in an almost literal sense. In high school and college, he was told constantly that to be a great defender, you had to keep your feet on the floor at all times, so as to afford yourself the most maneuverability possible. Russell refuted these ideas, and instead leapt emphatically to meet defenders around the rim and block their shots into the arms of his teammates. Guys from back then described Russell as an almost nightmarish entity, someone who would lurk in plain sight and strike without warning. He would wage psychological warfare on his enemies through intimidation and exude an aura that demanded an equal amount of fear and respect. He could guard behemoths at his position like Wilt and Nate Thurmond, but he could also switch onto guards with an insignificant drop in proficiency. Moreover, at the NBA level, with Red Auerbach's help, Russell became the linchpin in the Boston Celtics' patented fast break offense. Russell would contest a shot, secure the rebound, and push the ball forward to his streaking teammates so as to attack a defense on its heels. I know that doesn't sound like much today. The fast break is a part of every offensive system in the NBA and has been for decades. But Russell deserves credit as being the anchor of the NBA's most prolific defense and for being the cornerstone of an innovative offensive system. Wait, Bill Russell was an innovative offensive player? But I thought he had sub-average offensive numbers. His shooting percentages weren't very good. He didn't average that many points. What are you getting at, Clayton? The truth, my good man. But seriously, free your mind from the idea that a great offensive player can only be the guy who puts the ball through the net. Russell's court vision and passing ability were the keys to the engine of the Boston offense. You don't care though. His stats weren't good, and that's that. So let's talk about statistics. The important statistics in basketball are supposed to be points scored, rebounds, and assists.
Ooh, that's a great pass.
But nobody keeps statistics on other important things. The good fake you make that helps your teammates score. The bad pass you force the other team to make. The good long pass you make that sets up another pass, that sets up another pass that leads to a score. The way you recognize when one of your teammates has a hot hand that night and you give up your own shot so that he can take it. All of those things. Those were some of the things we excelled in that you won't find in the statistics. There was only one statistic that was important to us. Won and lost. Whoops, sorry. I slipped into first person there because I was reading a Bill Russell quote. As if my job wasn't hard enough, stats like steals and blocks, defensive stats, didn't start getting recorded until the mid-70s. The only stat I can give you is defensive win shares. Games that a team won that can be attributed in part or in full to a player's defensive contributions. No one has yet to come within even 80% of matching Bill Russell's 13-year career total in that category. And now we're back to
133.
The most important virtue of an athlete, right? It's how this debate always goes. 3 rings is more than 2. 5 rings is more than 3. 6 rings is more than 5. So why isn't 11 the largest number? I'll tell you why. There are 3 main reasons that people don't acknowledge the most decorated champion of all time as the greatest of all time. In the order I'll talk about them, they are that Wilt was better, that his era was weak, and that his team was stacked. First up, we have his friend, rival, and antithesis, Wilt Chamberlain. The careers of Wilt and Russell overlapped for about 10 years, and in those 10 years, the two became harbingers of the NBA.
So look, you wanna know why people saying the era was weak? It may have been weak in other areas, but for Bill's era, like his center era, you can't say Wilt is better than him. Then he beats Wilt multiple times, and then you say, nah, his era is weak. Well, if he's going up with somebody that's better than him and he's winning, how is the era weak? Then how is somebody better than him if he's beating him multiple times? Then you say the team is stacked. You want to say the team is stacked because he's beating Wilt, but you also can't say his era is weak because he's facing the person you're saying is better than him. So I mean,
their friendship, play styles, size, and championship disparity painted the two as inverses of each other. They are immortalized together as two sides of the same coin. Because they played in a bygone era, many basketball fans take to all-time leaderboards and the pages of record books to gain a better understanding of these two men. Statistically, the comparison is a no contest. Wilt was and is a basketball anomaly. Wilt scored the most points in a game ever, had the most points in a season, remains the league's all-time rebounder, logged the most rebounds in a game, and so on. And not only did Wilt set all of these records, but he put the bar so far out of reach that we'll see colonies on Mars before we see all of his records surpassed. How do I even
Facts.
begin to suggest that Russell is the superior basketball player?
Because he won more.
Russell played in the same era, and so you'd think he would benefit from the same era advantages like Wilt did. But where Wilt averaged 30 points a game, Russell averaged just a paltry 15. Their field goal percentages are similarly lopsided. Only in rebounding do the two seem comparable, with staggering averages and untouchable career totals. There's really no argument, right? Well, the two played 143 total games against each other. That's almost 15% of all the games that Bill Russell ever played in. In the 94 regular season games they went head-to-head, Russell's team won 57 times. In the 49 playoff games that they saw each other, Russell's team won 29 times.
Damn.
But hey, those are team records. Even looking at the box scores of those games and playoff series show that Wilt got his no matter what. Surely there must be some way to award a player for his individual expertise. Something like the MVP award, the most valuable player,
Okay.
the player who adds the most to his team and gives them the best chance to win, regardless of the players that he plays with. That should be worth something, right? Especially considering that, until 1980, the MVP award was voted on by the league's players. If Russell's teams were so unfairly...
Which they should go back to. The players should vote for the MVP again.
Surely his peers would see this and understand that he was simply the beneficiary of a rigged system, right? And they'd give Wilt the award year in and year out because he was the best individual, right? Right. Look, Wilt won 4 MVP awards during his career. But it's not as many as Russell. Russell won the NBA's most prestigious award, signifying the most valuable individual talent in the NBA, 5 times. The
So he
rest
won
of
it
the
more
NBA
than Wilt,
looked
and
at
the players
Boston
were voting.
Celtics, however talented they might have been, and recognized
So
that it-
let's think about it like this. People that were playing during that era were voting on it. We're looking at it from an era outside where we're basically based on numbers. And now we're the people like us, people in the media like us, we just talk, get the vote. So in this era, Wilt probably would have got more. But back in the era when it mattered, when the players was actually voting, I think I would look at those MVPs a little bit more because those players were voting on it. Bill got more. So when the players, the people that's playing, the professionals, the people that's actually on the court playing against these people, said Bill was better. You see what I'm saying? If it was in this era, Wilt would have more because we look at stats.
Bill Russell who made them tick, and they had no problem voting him over Wilt. You want to know Russell's favorite award that he ever won in the NBA? His 1962 NBA MVP award. Why? Because that was the season Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double. And it was the year that Wilt averaged 50 points a game. Russell averaged 18
See, if
points
Russell would have
and
averaged a
29
triple-double,
rebounds.
he wouldn't have won
Wilt's Warriors
MVP
would take
back
the
then.
Celtics
I think
to
the
a
players
game
wouldn't have voted
7
for
in
Russell.
that year's playoffs, only to lose in the game's dying seconds. Russell held the Wilt Chamberlain that had averaged 50 points that season.
Mike, if players were still voting, Mike probably have more. LeBron would probably have
Just
more.
28 in the most important game of the season. And in the finals, the Celtics would find themselves in
Kobe
another
would
game
have
7
more,
against
Shaq
the
would have
Lakers.
more.
This time in an overtime period that would decide the champion. Sam Jones and Bill Russell combined for 9 points in overtime, giving Boston their 4th championship in a row. Russell would end the game with 30 points and 44 rebounds.
Damn.
And now I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I wasn't alive to see Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain. There's a level of context I'll never have because I didn't live through that era. So
Facts.
why don't we hear from some of the people who did? Jerry West, Chamberlain's teammate from 1969 to 1973, said, "I don't want to rap Wilt because I believe only Russell was better, and I really respect what Wilt did. But I have to say, he wouldn't adjust to you. You had to adjust to him." 1975 Finals MVP and Hall of Famer Rick Barry said, "I'll say what most players feel, which is that Wilt is a loser. He is terrible in big games. When it comes down to the closing minutes of a tough game, an important game, he doesn't want the ball. He doesn't want any part of the pressure. It is at these times that greatness is determined, and Wilt doesn't have it." Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1990 wrote this, an open letter to Wilt Chamberlain. "It's been several years now, Wilt, that you have been
Oh, this is when they were beefing. They used to be friends.
criticizing my career with your friends in the press. After any tough test in which you didn't do well, you blamed those around you and quit. People will remember that I worked with my teammates and helped us win. You will be remembered as a whining crybaby and a quitter, stats and all." Stories abound about Wilt's infatuation with statistics, from correcting scorekeepers to scolding teammates for not making baskets that would have counted towards his assist totals. In 1965, the Warriors felt that Wilt was toxic and decided to trade him. One of the prospective landing spots for the Big Dipper was none other than the Los Angeles Lakers, where Jerry West and Elgin Baylor desperately needed someone to throw at Russell. The Lakers management decided to poll the players on whether the team should trade for Chamberlain. The poll resulted in a 9-2 decision against bringing Wilt to the team. Is it fair to call Wilt a loser? No. But did he make his teammates better?
No.
Rarely. Wilt played in 9 Game 7s. Russell played in 10. Wilt lost 5 of his. Russell never did.
Damn!
Okay,
Never
but back then there were
never losing in the biggest game is crazy.
8 teams, nobody was very tall, there was just a bunch of scrawny non-athletes. Russell couldn't hold Joel Embiid's jockstrap today. If you abide by the, yeah, he was
Joel's more skilled. The players today are more skilled, so
good
I mean
time,
that's
but
just
he couldn't
average.
hang today mindset, I need you to be consistent. I need you to acknowledge that across the board. You've painted yourself into a corner that states that the greatest athlete will always be the newest one. That
Facts,
Aroldis
so then
Chapman
LeBron would be
is
better.
historically a greater baseball player than Babe Ruth. Because Chapman would smoke Babe Ruth like a dad playing wiffle ball with his son. That if someday the NBA implements a
I don't look
four-point shot,
at the GOAT as who's more skilled in the more skilled time, because that's just how sports is going to evolve. I look at the NBA as who did the most, or sports, who did the most in their time period and left the biggest stamp. Which that's why I feel like a lot of people go towards Jordan for the NBA, because they feel like he left the biggest stamp, made it more global, dominated the 90s decade, nobody else could win. I go towards LeBron because I feel like for a 20-year stretch, he left a solidified, I'm the best player in the league, nobody's better than me. Maybe some years you lean towards Kobe, but it's very rarely somebody look better than LeBron. I go to 20 years thing. People go towards the decade of the most, dominating decade, 6 rings, retired for 2 of them. So, like, people go towards that, and I understand that. I go towards the 20 years of domination straight. You see what I'm saying? Not always been on the best team, so yeah, he's not going to win the most rings because he's not always on the best team. Most time, he's going against a better team. Michael was always on the best team during his dominant run. You feel what I'm saying? That's why I lean towards LeBron, but I can understand how people go. People going to lean towards Bill Russell because he won the most rings ever during his time period. So I can understand
you
people would look at it.
immediately have to look at Steph Curry and say, yeah, he was a good shooter for his time, but he couldn't cut it today. His era was easier. If he played today, he'd just be an average shooter. In that world, no one will ever hold the crown for long, because time will pass, and modern athletes inevitably age into ancient ones. So isn't the fairest way to evaluate these players to look at what they did in the context of their eras?
See, that's
I
what I'm
think
saying, yeah.
Because I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Everybody had era-specific advantages.
Facts.
Great players are great because they exploit them. Alright, let's try to get some context. I think that Russell's 11 championships actually hurt him historically in this way. It's such an incomprehensible number that it just lends itself to people trying to poke holes in it or find ways to discredit him.
Like, yeah, 11
11 is
championships, but
just
yeah,
too
his team
big
is
of a
stacked.
number, right?
It's
Jordan has
too hard to
6,
comprehend.
And we know the stories of all 6. We can remember who LeBron and Kobe beat to win their championships and what it meant to them. It's hard to do that with 11, and it's even harder to do that when they happened in the ballpark of 60 years ago. I briefly touched on 62, so here's a little more context for you. After 8 straight titles for Boston, Wilt and the 1967 76ers put the league on notice. They won a league record 68 games and disrupted the Celtics' streak in just 5 games. They put the ribbon on their season weeks later when they won the championship. And then, the very next year, the 76ers entered the playoffs with the best record in the league. Wilt led the league in assists and won the MVP. When they met the Celtics in the Eastern Finals, they racked up a 3-1 lead. And then, as player-coach of the Celtics, Bill Russell engineered the greatest comeback basketball had ever seen, becoming the first team to ever overcome a 3-1 deficit. Wilt did not attempt a field goal in the second half of Game 7.
Damn.
Russell did damn near everything to ice the game in its final minute. 1966 was Red Auerbach's last year. He began the season by telling his contemporaries that this was their last shot to beat him. After defeating the Oscar Robertson Royals and Wilt's 76ers, the Lakers and the Celtics went the distance in the finals. In Game 7, an inspired Russell helped fend off an intense Lakers rally in the final period, tallying 25 points and 32 rebounds to send his coach out as a winner. Go look up his teams. You'll see that 1965 was Russell's best team. You might think it was easier back then, though, because Russell was playing against a bunch of nobodies. And you've got me there. He only had to go through Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Hal Greer,
That is
Dolph
a fat
Shays,
team.
Oscar Robertson, Willis Reed, Nate Thurmond, Walt Frazier, and Bob Pettit. You know, a bunch of nobodies.
Legends.
The fact is that the weak era argument is, more often than not, an excuse made by people who want to discredit a player from before their time who can't be bothered to look them up and try to learn about them.
Because Nate Thurman is a very underrated center. People don't, he's top 10 center all the time. Bob Pettit was really a shooter before the three-point line is big. He's a shooter, big man. Walt Frazier is a little New York legend. I think the only New York Knicks rings have came from Walt. So last time they ever won a ring. Oscar Robertson, first person to ever average a triple-double, so you know he's not a scrub. You know what I'm saying? Russell broke his record for most triple-doubles. You go Jerry West. That's the logo. That's self-explanatory. Elgin Baylor, one of the best small forwards ever. Then you go Wilt. You know what Wilt is. See what I'm saying? So there's players everywhere. Then you had people, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's players everywhere. You got Rick Barry.
You know, it's crazy to think about how long basketball's been around. I know it's crazy trying to convince you that the first truly great player from the game's first truly great era was the greatest of them all. The odds that the first model was the best model are astronomical.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it impossible, though. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that 8 teams actually made the league tougher, or that players from back then were just as good as they are today.
Because let's look at it today. You say 8 teams, we just named almost a legend a team. If you look at it in today's era, there's not a legend on every team. There's not even a superstar on every team. It's very rare. It's still about the same amount of superstars. Those are all superstars. Superstars. Not all stars. These are Hall of Famers we just named. There is not a Hall of Famer on every team in the NBA right now. There's not a Hall of Famer on every team in the 90s. So if you look at it that way, there's 8 Hall of Famers on almost each Hall of Famer each team. If we go today, there's not a Hall of Famer each team. There's about a Hall of Famer every 8 teams. So it still kind of stays the same. You know what I'm saying? You got LeBron, he's a Hall of Famer. AD's a Hall of Famer. There's 2 on one team. Okay, you got Steph, Draymond, Clay. That's Hall of Famer each team. You got KD, he's a Hall of Famer. Kyrie, possibly. Then we go Giannis, Jokic. But if you do the ratio, it's like a 100% ratio in the 60s. It's probably like a 40 now. And not all of them are superstars now, because Draymond and Clay is not a superstar right now. Kyrie, iffy. I don't know if you call him a superstar.
We're looking at this in context. The league was
not a superstar right now.
Hall of Famers and all-time greats. And the Celtics played in enough Game 7s that any rational observer would look at it and see that it wasn't easy for Russell. But wait, there's more. Because it wasn't just that Russell played in a weak era. He played with the better team every single year. If you didn't know, I've actually already made the case that Wilt was the greatest basketball player of all time.
We may watch that.
Bill Russell consistently had better teammates than Wilt Chamberlain did. That's as good as a fact to me, and I will maintain it even when I make the case for Bill Russell. So here I am saying it. Bill Russell often had the best team in the NBA. And that makes sense, right? You don't win one championship without a great team, let alone 11. And Russell had a great team, a legendary coach, and talented teammates. Bob Cousy was the league's second MVP ever, and John Havlicek helped lead the Celtics to 2 more titles in the 70s. Plus, guys like Casey Jones, Bill Sharman, Frank Ramsey, Tommy Heinsohn, and Sam Jones are all in the Hall of Fame. But is it that simple? Like I said earlier, the players voted on MVPs during those days, and Russell won 5 of them. So, however stacked his team might have felt to the rest of the league,
people always felt like he was the best player on the team.
Russell made it all work. And look at those Hall of Famers that Russell played with and how many championships they won. There's no way the Hall of Fame could leave these guys out, right?
Facts.
So was it that Russell was actually playing alongside a 12-man roster of Monstars? Or were those guys Hall of Famers because they played alongside Bill Russell? I would argue that he had the better team all those years because those teams all had Bill Russell. He never cared about anything other than winning. He put himself and his teammates in position to win, time and time and time again. I know I keep repeating the number, but 11 championships. That's not a fluke. That's
crazy.
A team galvanized by a once-in-a-generation talent and a once-in-a-lifetime leader. There's no evidence that indicates that the Celtics would have enjoyed anything close to the amount of successes they did without Russell. The year before they got Russ, they were 39 and 33. The year after he retired, they were 34 and 48. Russell would throw up before big games throughout his career. It was a ritual that his teammates initially found on.
And they said if Red be like, if he didn't get sick, he would tell them, you better go throw up or something like that.
But eventually came to find a serene confidence in. Bill was setting an example. Their best player, despite all of the honors that he had won and all of the champagne he had drank, still cared that much about winning. That's maybe the most impressive thing to me. He never rested on his laurels, never used past accomplishments as justifications for anything. He withstood the test of time and the temptations of self-interest. He never stopped caring, and so his teammates didn't either. So when Sam Jones hits a game winner, or Tom Heinsohn explodes in a playoff game, don't take credit away from them, but know that they are the ones who will tell you that it was Russell who made it all possible. Please don't make me keep going. Fine. Bill Russell his high school JV team in his sophomore season. He was raw, lacked fundamentals, and was driven by unrefined passion alone. Then, as a junior and senior, he led the team to back-to-back state titles.
Damn.
Colleges didn't care though, and he didn't receive a single offer from any college. That is, until a scout from the University of San Francisco saw him and offered him a scholarship. In his 3 varsity years at USF, Russell helped turn a relatively unremarkable team into a perennial powerhouse. He went 71-8 and won 2 national championships.
Turning a team that's trash in college, that's hard. Turning a team that's trash in college to a perennial powerhouse and winning 2 national championships is nuts.
The Dons started the season.
So this should really prove that maybe it was just him and the team surrounding him got into the fame, was maybe outside of Bob because he won an MVP, but these people got into the Hall of Fame because of him, because they just won so many rings. It's kind of hard to keep people out with those many rings.
By the end of the season, they were the #1 team in the country and the national champions.
Jesus
in
Christ.
his senior year, the team went undefeated and carried the #1 ranking wire to wire. At one point, USF had a win streak of 55 games. Of the players on that team, only Casey Jones would go on to the NBA and, ironically, to play with Russell.
Only one
Bill
player.
Russell is
Yeah.
basketball Midas.
I'm with you. It
Every
may
team
just be
he
him.
touches turns to gold.
Yeah, it may just be
And
him.
oh, by the way, Bill Russell's career coincided with the civil rights movement of the 1960s in a truly surreal way. He endured a disheartening amount of injustice during his career with a grace and pride that is worthy of remembrance in and of itself. But he did more than that, using his position to challenge the establishments around him and effect change. He was a leading voice at the Muhammad Ali Summit in Cleveland. He was at the March on Washington and in attendance for Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. He didn't attend his own Hall of Fame induction because he thought that someone like Chuck Cooper deserved to be the first African-American inductee rather than himself.
Respect.
He was denied rooms in hotels and service in restaurants on basketball road trips. And so, he refused to play. When Red Auerbach retired after the '66 season, Russell became the first black head coach in any of the 4 major American sports. While he was playing for the Celtics, vandals broke into his suburban home, spray-painted racist graffiti on the walls, broke his trophies, and defecated on his bed. His contributions to the civil rights movement are as important and notable as any other athlete. He helped light the torch that athletes today continue
This man
to
really pushed the agenda of... Yo, I almost got tears listening to that, bro. That's kind of crazy. Playing at the time, being a head coach while playing, one of the first, pushing the civil rights movement with people that's solidified in civil rights. When you think civil rights, you don't think Bill Russell, but he was also there pushing the agenda also. While playing ball and taking in the hatred of people that just hate him for his skin color. He's putting their city on the map, pushing the agenda of the city, maybe bringing more money, revenue, people to the city by playing basketball, because this is a known fact. When you win and you play in sports towns, as teams win more, it brings more money to the city, brings more people to the city, brings more popularity to the city. So him doing that and pushing the civil rights and still people in his own city hating him for that, and then when he goes out of town pushing the agenda of a well-known league now today, without him it may not be, and still getting hate and being denied, bro, this is a true legend. No disrespect should ever be spoken.
Does this necessarily make him the greatest player of all time? No. But when you think about what he was able to accomplish, I don't know how you could be anything but awestruck. What is greatness? It's a question worth discussing, even if there are multiple answers with equal validity. One answer might be this, that greatness is the absence of potential. Bill Russell couldn't control how tall he was, or how much muscle mass his body could support, how fast he could run, how quickly he could jump. There are a host of things that might hinder or accentuate an individual's potential. Greatness is when, at the end of the road, you can look at that individual and say with certainty, there is no more potential. Every ounce got drained, every possibility exhausted. The tank got emptied, and the fight got fought. There was simply nothing left. That's a form of greatness worth celebrating. Bill Russell didn't dominate basketball. He conquered it. He ruled a sport for 13 years. Any uprisings or revolutions were succinctly quelled. There is perhaps no term more aptly suited for the totality of what he created than the word dynasty. He was the greatest defender basketball.
He did single-handedly create the Celtics dynasty. Because you think about the Lakers dynasty. Lakers had many stars that did this. It didn't start by a Wilt or a Jerry West. It was just many stars over time winning these things. So you had Jerry West won one. You got Magic come in and win Magic with James Worthy and Kareem winning some. Then you got Shaq and Kobe winning some. Then you got the new age Lakers with Kobe winning some. You see what I'm saying? Then you got LeBron winning the latest one. So you got many superstars over an age. If you think about most of those significant Celtics championships, without Bill's 11, the Celtics are right there with the Bulls. You see what I'm saying? Without him, they're right there with the Bulls. So just think about it. The way you think of the Bulls dynasty should be the same way you think of the Celtics without Bill Russell. They have the most. Oh my, that's crazy. You really think about it, you take out 11.
He steered basketball into the modern era. He created a culture from scratch. His loyalties did not belong to fans or the media or to Boston. His loyalty belonged to the Celtics. There is such a thing as a platonic idea, named after the philosopher Plato. Take, for instance, a chair. You know what a chair is. You have in your mind the idea of a chair. They might look different, be made out of different material, and serve different purposes. But a chair is recognizable because you have the platonic idea of a chair. You might have heard this term used to describe friendships. A platonic friendship is one centered around the very essence of friendship itself. Not romance, or sexual gratification, or convenient utility, but simply because you enjoy being in that person's company. Bill Russell, more than anyone, unlocked the platonic idea of basketball. And I think in a big way, that's why we love sports. Sports is one of the most organic and compelling storytelling devices that we have ever found. Sports tell a story, and in that story, we hope to find pieces of ourselves. In the platonic idea of basketball, we find things like compassion, selflessness, solidarity, resiliency, and triumph. There's one last thing that sums it all up. The 1969 finals. It's Russell's last year, and the Celtics are running on fumes. They finished the season 48-34, their worst record since they drafted him. Still, they roll through the East and find themselves matched up against the Lakers, with Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, and Wilt Chamberlain. The Celtics are massive underdogs. Finally, Russell's most bitter rivals will reach the top of the mountain and send him out a loser. But Boston won't go down without a fight. The series goes to 7 games. Every game but one is decided in the single digits. Russell's scoring days are over. These days, he leads his team by cleaning the boards and setting up his teammates. In Game 7, his swan song. In Los Angeles, Bill Russell and the Celtics did what they always did. They found a way, and they won. Here, after cementing himself as the greatest basketball player of all time, is the platonic idea of basketball.
Yes, I'm here with Bill Russell. Bill, this must have been a great win for you. Exactly.
Oh man, this is a great video. Oh, it's a great video. It's over. Oh man, it brought tears in my eyes. They ain't even brought tears, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. They ain't even brought tears. We lost a good. We lost a good legend, bro. We lost a great legend. Oh man. Oh, this is a good video. Let me know what you guys think. Oh man, it brought tears in my eyes, and I hate crying. I especially hate crying on camera. That was a good video. Let me know what you think. We lost the greatest winner of all time. Let me know what you think. Did this video change your mind on the GOAT conversation? I still got tears in my eyes, bro. It kind of changed my mind a little bit. It makes you look at it on a broader scale. Makes you look at so many aspects go into the GOAT conversation, not just play on the court. I think of whole totality of people, a person playing sports, a person playing basketball, and what basketball means. I think you would have to think of Bill Russell first. So in my case, if you look at basketball as a whole, even without basketball, like the aspects that go into just being a human playing basketball, I feel like Bill Russell's the GOAT in that sense. Let me know what you guys think down below. JRU, I love y'all. I am out.
Back and we do it all again. We tryna run it up to my ball, what's the plan? All up in my mentions when I see them, they my fans. You